Hello, good evening, and welcome to Gridiron Gurus for the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel. I'm Travis Lazarczyk, alongside, as always, my colleague Drew Bonifant. Drew, how are you tonight? Staying warm?
Trying.
Yeah. Short sleeves, bad choice.
Yeah, luckily we're inside, but it makes the walk back to the car a little painful. Even though I do have a jacket on, it still finds a way to seep through. So
You'll learn, yeah. And you're from New Hampshire. You ought to know better.
Yeah, it makes me think I'm tough, but
live free or freeze.
Yeah, I'm quickly finding out not so much.
Anyway, our guest this week is Nokomis head coach Jake Rogers. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We've got a lot to talk about with regional finals tonight, but let's start out with an issue I saw on the interwebs this week, guys. A coach in Long Island at Plain Edge High School, I think it is, was suspended one game by whatever committee runs high school football in Long Island for allegedly running up the score. Now, his team beat this school, South Shore, 61-13. Both teams were undefeated going into the game, so I guess his argument was, you can't get up enough on a good team because they can come back. Coach, I've asked you, you've been on both ends of a lopsided game. Should a coach be suspended if it gets out of control?
I think it's the only way that it will curb it. As long as but it is difficult if you put in backup players and you're running the ball and the other team literally can't tackle you. It's one thing. Yeah. But if you keep your starters in and you continue to run your offense, throwing the ball around, there has to be consequences because it's not helping anyone when you coach that way. It doesn't help your kids. Doesn't help the opponent kids.
Drew, have any feelings on this?
Yeah, I think Coach has a good point because it's not like these things sneak up on you. And it's not like, we were playing a close game, and all of a sudden I look around and it's a 42-point. You can feel it getting out of hand. You can feel yourself being way, way ahead of the other team. Even if they have, they could have played a weak schedule. They could have had a ton of injuries going into the game that caused them to, be not indicative of what the record is. So it's, at some point I think. It's kind of on the other team if a score starts to get out of hand. You can't just coach for it to be a 14-point game every time. That's just not feasible. But at some point, when you're on your way with 61-13,
61-13, yeah.
Yeah, it does have to occur to the coach at some point to back off a little bit. Maybe not necessarily in the first half, even if you are off to a big start, because you do have to let your starters play the game and everything. But there are ample opportunities to scale back from then on.
Okay. I have no idea if Long Island uses the running time rule like we do in Maine when it's 35-point margin in the second half. My thing, I guess, is what constitutes a blowout? How many points is, as a coach, I'm sure you can kind of do the math in your head. You're looking at the scoreboard. You're going, okay, there's just not enough seconds in this game for them to come back, even if we screw up everything.
It also goes by how are you beating them. Did you get a couple of pick sixes, maybe a fluky special team score, but the other team's moving the ball? Then I understand being, slightly nervous because they may have been moving the ball, but maybe just had really bad mistakes. Mm-hmm. But if you're trouncing them and they've got 20 rushing yards, and as a coach, okay, it's in the bag. I can put in maybe a junior tailback or my sophomore that I let them run behind the varsity line. Mm-hmm. With the skilled kids, it's difficult. That's a great opportunity to see what you got in the young kid. Let him run behind the older guys, see if he's successful. Then you're still running, doing your thing, but at least you're giving some younger kids an opportunity maybe to show something playing with the older guys. Sure. And then the other team can't be like, well, you kept in, your great tailback who was killing us. No, but keeping your starters, keeping them all in, it's just. As a coach.
Yeah. I can't think of any high school coach that I've seen in one of these lopsided games that hasn't taken out their first unit. The only schools I can think of that haven't are schools like in the case sometimes you guys play this year where you just didn't have enough of a backup unit to put in, and you got to just stick with the 18 guys you've been rotating anyway.
Yeah, that in Maine that happens. Not in Long Island.
Probably not.
I'm guessing they have a few more kids than we do on their team, and I'm pretty sure they have probably a pretty good young group too. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's a little bit different than ours.
I'm always reminded of St. John Prep outside of Boston came up and practiced in preseason at a camp outside of Wayne one summer, and the coach told me he brought 125, and that's leaving 100 freshmen at home.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a good point that you made in that a game can feel like it's starting to get out of hand, even if that's not really how it's playing out. Just like, you get the opening, you get you win the toss, you receive, you score, you're 7-0. They fumble the kickoff,
Yep.
you bring it in, it's 14-0. You hold them, you score your next drive. Now it's 21-0, and all they've done is had only one drive that they hadn't scored. So that's not. It's 21-0, but it doesn't feel like you're blowing them out, so to speak. But when you're taking that lead or a bigger lead than that into the second half, I mean, you've seen by then what the other team has and whether they can really start to challenge you, and whether it's just. Yeah. It's just about you get the ball and you're gonna go down the field in them every single time.
And I guess if they do score a couple quick times against your second unit, you can bring in your starters and just say, all right, let's nip this in the bud.
Old cliche, you never want to have to bring your starters back in, and some coaches fear that. But, we had a few games. We didn't have any games where we got to do it this year. We had it done to us a couple of times. But last year, we always would come out of the halftime. If we knew it was a big lead, we usually wanted to get one more drive. When score or no score, we're going to get another drive, get a little bit of rhythm, and then we would put in the younger group. And no matter if it was if it was 28, that was usually my mark. Mm-hmm. As long as I knew we were in a good spot, we were trying to run the clock. That's usually the number I shoot for.
Did you have a game where you had to bring back your starters?
We almost did in Belfast.
Okay.
We almost did against Belfast. I took them out early third quarter, and the younger guys did not play well. This was 2 years ago. I take that back. Not last year, 2 years ago. And they scored on it was a hook and ladder. They scored on two trick plays, and they still had their older guys in, and my younger guys, there was a big drop off. Sure. And I refused to put them in. We still had a 2-score lead with about 2 minutes left, so I wasn't panicking, and the younger guys took that as a learning lesson, and they went out the next week and played a lot better. So,
I'm sure a lot of those younger guys became guys who you needed last year on the state championship run.
Some of those guys did help us out on that state team. So it was definitely a good learning experience for them that, you get that opportunity during a varsity game. That's when a kid can go from just an ordinary player to being a stud for you.
Sure.
Because he starts getting that feel for a varsity game. So it can change a player.
You mentioned that Belfast sequence because that's kind of the flip side that you do want to avoid as a coach. You want to avoid the game slipping into that anything can happen right now. Yeah, you might be thinking as long as we have the lead we're fine. But if that gets to 7 points or something, well now they've got momentum and now you're just a mistake away from a stupid mistake away from the game getting away from you. So you want to kind of find a window
balance
in there.
There is. Yep, and. Because if you take those young kids out, it can really crush them too. Because you got to remember, when you have your backups in, a lot of them are 14, 15 years old. And some of them just emotionally, they know they failed immediately. They already know they did, but when you take them out, now you're really setting a statement for
everybody
them.
In the stands
exactly
sees it.
And the coach, you're telling them right now the coach has no faith in them.
Right.
And you just, maybe I should have, hang on for another series. But that's one time out of 18, how many years I've been coaching where I've seen that happen.
Sure.
It's quite fluky, but I always say, I'd rather get them out early.
Right. Well, I think here in Maine, the football community has done a good job of kind of policing itself.
Yeah,
and I don't think that a suspension rule would be in order, anytime soon.
Yeah.
No, and I haven't seen in the games I've covered. I haven't seen a team really pouring it on. If we get a really bad blowout score like in Winslow, they had a 76-14 win or something.
76-6 against Madonna.
Yeah, that might sound like, but that's also. How many of those points were scored in the first half? How was that a 35-0 lead after the first quarter? You need to weigh into that versus we're up 50-0 in the late the third quarter. And we're still trying to.
Well, and it's
points.
The nature of the sport where you can't tell junior varsity players or freshman team players to not go out and play hard because that's when you get injuries, when you slow down and take a play off.
And as the coach, because I got to do it quite a bit this year, when you are getting beat by a lot and the score's too big, you can't mount a comeback. With all these spread offenses now, and not so much in our state, but I know out of state because pretty much every school runs the spread. you can't just run the ball to kill the clock anymore.
Right.
And so if you have a quarterback out there you're getting beat 50-14, and you're still out there trying to throw, thinking the kid's going to get some rhythm, but he keeps throwing interceptions. So that maybe that's what happened in that Long Island game. Yeah. I don't know. Without reading the stat book, I can't tell you. But I know I've seen games just on ESPN where it's like, all right, you guys will, this is getting out of hand. Stop throwing the ball.
But they don't know how to do anything else.
They can't do anything. They don't get under center and just hand off to a kid.
Yeah.
And that can, with the evolution of the passing, it makes games really, really lopsided at times. Good and bad.
Yeah. Nobody has a full house package to go to when it's a lopsided game.
We do in Maine, but not many places else. But
wishbone.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at some of these regional finals, and we'll start, Drew, with Class D South. Friday night we have Lisbon going to Winthrop, Monmouth, Halldale.
Yep, it's a rematch of a game that Winthrop, Monmouth, Halldale won earlier this year, and it's. These teams have had a lot of close competitive battles over the years. They met in the regional final 3 years ago. It was a really thrilling 20-17 win for Lisbon. They won the last second, literally. And then the next year, Lisbon was the higher seed. Winthrop Monmouth was the lower seed. Went to Lisbon and beat them. So they both gotten their gotten one in on the other one in that rivalry. So, and the players have talked about how with the Winthrop Monmouth Halldale players are talking about. They're the teams that we play, and there's Lisbon. Lisbon feels a little different when you play them, just because those teams are always good. I think it's going to be a matchup of, in a way, of speed versus size and power. Winthrop has a lot of speed from multiple amount of players. Lisbon has a power running game and is good on defense, and I wonder if the weather is going to take away the passing element that makes Winthrop pretty dangerous and force them to try to. Be at 50% of what they normally do. Right. And, Coach, I'm not sure. Does the passing game really only get slowed by snow and rain, or can cold do it,
I think cold really affects it because it actually makes the ball slippery.
Yeah.
Because when that leather gets really cold, it's like holding a marble. And it's really hard to grip. If your quarterback doesn't have big hands, it's hard to grip, and you don't get as good of a spiral on it. So the deep pass game, which Winthrop does very well, it could be affected. But if they're cycling that ball in, like we keep a hot box, okay. we keep our footballs hot. I have a heater in a giant box, and we make sure those things stay warm. Just because when they're cold, it's hard to kick, it's hard to throw. It does affect it quite a bit.
It sounds like if you get a warm ball in the mix, it takes care of the throwing angle necessarily, but the receivers are still out there trying to catch a ball with cold hands.
With the hot hands and the hand warmers that they wear around their waist, as long as you got that stuff, don't if they're not trying to be a tough guy and be smart about it, you can stay warm during a game. It is possible.
Somebody needs to invent like thermal stickum.
Yes.
It sounds like that's the key for that game. I mean, if this game were being played in late September or early October and it was 45, 50 degrees out, then it would be tough to give Lisbon much of a shot, just because Winthrop has so much athleticism at so many different spots. But you give Lisbon a much better chance here, just because because you wonder how much of their offense Winthrop's going to be able to lean on, and whether it's going. If it makes it just a running game. Well, now you can really just focus on the contain rather than worrying about the pass defense.
They have a very good running game. Winthrop does.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of break them down. You guys played them late season.
Winthrop, because I actually got to see the first Winthrop Lisbon game, and Winthrop can do a little bit of everything. They run a little bit of wing tee. They can get in the gun, and they got two or three different guys they'll give the ball to. That makes a team really difficult, because if one guy's not having it, you can put another guy in, give him the rock, and see how he's moving. They got a big tailback that's hard to bring down. I can't remember the kid's name. But
probably Jevin Smith.
Yeah, I know he just runs, and he ran on them pretty good the first game. They threw a ton, but Lisbon was running out of gun when I saw him, so I didn't get to see their running game, because I knew they went about it knowing that Winthrop runs a bear front against any normal underneath center offense, and that's really, really difficult to run on. And that was how I saw right out of the gate. Lisbon scored early in that game. They beat the bear front, hit a seam for a touchdown right out of the gate. It was like a 50-yard pass. So I wouldn't be shocked if Lisbon comes out and tries that same game plan because they had shots down the field in that first game, and the quarterback just missed it a couple of times. But Winthrop's defense is that bear front. It's very aggressive. As long as you hold up front and don't let anybody get to that second level, it's really difficult to move the ball against. But if you can get past that front line, you can be off to the races. So I would expect Lisbon knows what they're going to see. So I would expect, quite a few tweaks to their offense, fully knowing how to. They know they need to beat that bear front.
Yeah, and it would be a change from what they did last week because against Oak Hill they just kind of bunched it in and just bounced around outside. And Oak Hill didn't have the speed to keep up. Winthrop will. Yeah, so
I wouldn't expect. I would imagine they'd come out in that same game plan they had. Try to go gun a little bit.
Yeah.
They'd probably run their regular offense still, but you definitely want. They know because they've got that book on them already, and they're like, well, if we do this and actually execute it, we'll have success. And that's a great thing about you can lose to a team and gain a lot, and losing that game in the regular season doesn't mean, well, great, we're going to lose again. No, well, you got a blueprint now. You know what they want to do to stop you, and now you can do some tweaks to passing routes, certain run plays. Now you really know you can really hone in on how to make a certain blocking scheme work against that front. So
it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can scrap a lot of the stuff that that you're not going to have much success with.
You guys on your state championship run last year in the regional playoffs beat two teams in MCI and Herman that had beaten you in the regular season. Yep. So
and Herman throttled us in that first game. So right. And that was more just being inexperienced. I feel not much changed. It was. We had to stop, a special player, but having played that team at, like MCI the week before, we knew what that changed everything for us. We knew we could do this. We know we can't do that. And it really can help you a lot.
Okay. Let's look at your league now, Coach. It's Class C North, the Big 11. We have MCI playing Winslow at Hamden Academy in a neutral site on Saturday afternoon. Regular season, Winslow was down to MCI 19-14 at the half, just did their Winslow thing and just reeled off a lot of points and pulled away for a 61-37 win. Coach, I know you saw both of these teams, I think, first half of the season, but what kind of stood out about Winslow? What kind of stood out about MCI to you?
Winslow just up front in their skill. They're one of the most balanced Winslow teams I've seen. Before I even started coaching at Nokomis, because I always kept tabs with them and stuff. Because it's not one guy. It wasn't like the Hapworth years where you're going to give the ball to Dylan and just let him go. Yeah. Last year when they had the Dorval kid, he's getting the rock. And then Pomeroy might do a little thing. Pomeroy's built himself into a really good quarterback. A kid that can run the option and throw. That's a special kid, That's because all you got to rep the option to be good at it, and then you got to find time to throw. And then they got multiple backs. The Clark kid is really tough, just the tough kid to make a tackle on because he's so elusive. And then there's a 22,
Cody Ivy,
a very underrated player.
He's become a really good receiver.
He's a really good receiver. And then they got. Two monsters that they use at split end and tight end. So, they are, and not to mention their lines, one of the better lines I've seen, from B, C, D. They're huge, they're fast, they're technical. They're very, very, very balanced just all the way around. They're just good all the way across the board. And MCI, they can throw, they can run, and they got one thing. They really believe they can beat anybody. Mm-hmm. And that's a heck of a thing to have, and that would be my one edge towards MCI is those kids truly believe they can beat anybody.
Yeah, you talk about Colby Pomeroy becoming a really good all around quarterback. I think Ryan Friend at MCI has he's a junior, but it's his third year starting now. He's throwing the ball better than I've seen him the last few years, and just playing with a confidence and poise that you probably only get with that kind of experience.
Ryan is, a lot of, if you're not in Class C, you may not know about him, but this kid, he runs like a running back. He's willing to just destroy guys when he hits them. He's not going to run out of bounds. He tries to take the contact to the tackler. And then so when you see him roll out as a defender, you're coming up because you know you need to be ready to hit him, and then he'll drop a 50-yard bomb over your head. You know, he's from everything I've seen on film of him this year, he's throwing darts and deep. He's got runners all over the field. So, and that's the one thing I just have seen with Winslow's defense is they are susceptible to the pass a little bit. If you can throw it, that's how you're probably gonna get past them. You know, you're not going to be able to run the ball all that successfully on them because they're going to swarm, they're going to cover, they're going to
good chase. Linebackers with Rob Clark we mentioned, and Evan Bourget, who's also a good fullback.
Oh yeah, they wall it up. You know, they're going to destroy everybody with their front wall guys and let the second level defenders make the tackles. You know, but by doing that, you're vulnerable in different spots in the pass game, and if MCI hits those, they can be big gains. Yeah. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah. One thing that MCI has this time that they didn't have before, guys, is Cole Steves at tailback. He missed that game with a knee injury, I believe, and they had to move Isaac Buzzle from offensive guard to fullback. He ran the ball well, ran for 170-something yards and 3 touchdowns, but by doing that, it makes you a little weaker on the line. Now, if Buzzle's at guard blocking for a player like Steves, they might have a different wrinkle that Winslow didn't see the first go around.
Just playing, because I played MCI, coached against MCI more than I have Winslow. They don't change much. No. They don't change much, and they'll throw you a few wrinkles like within the pass game and stuff. But when they want to run the ball, they're going to run the ball. They're going to come at you, and their offensive line are really technical. They down block, they drive block real well. If they want to turn it into a mauling match, they're going to try. They can do it. Because they're that good up front. Yeah,
one thing Winslow's been susceptible to in recent weeks is the long drive. Madomic Valley had a 10-minute, 40-second drive. Didn't come away with points, but the big thing against this potent Winslow offense is just keep it away from them, and they can't put the points up on you.
Yeah, and that can go back to that mental aspect too,
sure.
Because they've been close. This group of seniors at Winslow, they lost to Herman last year.
Lost to MCI the year before.
Year before, lost to MCI. I can't remember what they did the year before.
Lost to Mount Desert Island in the regional final.
So that can really get on your psyche as knowing it's your last year. Mm-hmm. You've been there. You just haven't been able to get over that hump. If they fall prey to that and they get tight, that's where I would give the edge to the MCI because I don't think they'll get tight. Those guys, they're different. They're different cats over there. They don't seem to ever get that way. But if they truly believe that they're better than MCI, they're probably going to roll. Yeah. So it's one or the other. I think.
Right. Yeah, it does feel like if Winslow wins this game, it's going to be just because they just bring more to the table than MCI does. It doesn't sound like MCI is going to be put in a bad situation with coaching or unprepared or anything like that. It seems like, and just based on the fact MCI is at this point every year, seemingly, that they know how to play at this time of year.
Both teams have become perennial, and you mentioned MCI does what they do. Winslow's been running the same offensive system under Coach Savitsky for 3 decades. They're very good at disguising what they do, and that it might be the same play over and over again, but just a slightly different formation, and gives you guys, I'm sure as a coach, Fitz trying to get that into your kids. It's the same thing, just ignore the look of it.
And they've run the same defense since I've been in the league. Since Wes has been there. They run that 4-4, 4-2-5, whatever you want to call it, and they run it really well. It's especially when you're that good up front. It's tough. It's tough to do anything against.
Sure. All right, let's look at the Pine Tree Conference Class B final. It's a rematch of last year's game. Lawrence is going to Brunswick. Brunswick drew undefeated at 10-0. Lawrence 9-1. The one loss to Brunswick about week 4, midseason.
And it feels like while Brunswick is still clearly the team to beat in that class, and they've been the number 1 team in that conference all year long. Those 50-something to single-digit wins are starting to turn into closer games. So can Lawrence close the gap enough to actually to find themselves in a 1-score game going to the fourth? In the fourth, that might be the path to win this game for them. They definitely showed their mental toughness in holding off Mount Blue, because Mount Blue looked like in that game making it a one-score game late in the third quarter. Like maybe they were starting to do what they did to Coney the week before, and John Hersman's bunch had the answer when they needed it most.
Yeah. Talk about keeping it close going in the fourth. Last year in the regular season, Brunswick went to Lawrence, won I think 58-28, something like that, just pulled away. Conference final game, it's 14-10 Brunswick when Lawrence has the ball in Brunswick territory with a chance to go ahead late. Coach, you went to Lawrence, you coached at Lawrence for many years under Coach Hersum, and you coached against Brunswick, I'm sure, a bunch. What do you see as the Bulldogs' chances here as underdogs?
I've got to watch Lawrence a few times, streaming them online this year, and it's a different type of group. They're big up front, which that rarely happens there for some odd reason, but they got some big kids up front. They got a couple of seniors that are leading this way with a bunch of younger guys too. It's a weird mix of youth and veteran right now, and the older guys are really they're playing their hearts out. I catch him on every film. This Mike Roy kid, he's like
center,
he's 160 pounds playing D end, and he makes more plays than anybody on that defense I've seen. And they fly around. They feed off of each other. And last week was the worst game I'd seen the quarterback have, Coombs.
Coombs, yeah.
I hadn't seen the kid ever make a mistake until last week, so I wouldn't think that's a trend. I would say it was just a bad game because he's a player. He
threw 2 interceptions late in the second quarter, and one of them was just a heck of a play by the Kyle Fox kid from Mount Blue. Little underthrown, but the kid, Fox just goes up, catches it one-handed, and then has a clear path to the end zone for the pick six.
Yeah. And now that literally was the only time I've ever seen that kid make a mistake. Yeah. And I just knowing how he is, just from what I've heard, he's going to bounce back, and I would think he's going to be a real weapon this week. He's going to want to fix those mistakes. Yeah. He's that type of kid. I hear he's a really good basketball player. I've watched him last year play defense. He's an intense kid.
Sure.
The kids follow him, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest question mark for that Lawrence defense? How they handle the power running of Owen Richardson, or how they handle the speed with Mitch Minor there?
From what because I actually talked to coaches after the loss, and they said they could do, they were doing whatever they wanted that first game. Yeah. And I think it's just, if the kid's going with the confidence and play defense, don't try to stop. We're not going to stop Belly. Yeah. We're not just going to try to stop down. You're going to play defense and stop everything. I would imagine that's what coach is really stressing to him this week. You can't concentrate on one thing, because if you just worry about stopping that one play, they can always call another play if they want to. Coach Cooper's been doing it long enough. He's got more than one play in the playbook. So, I would imagine, Coach Erstam's just telling his guys, you just got to play fast, take your reads and swarm. Don't be intimidated by them. They're not an unbeatable team.
Right. Well, Skowhegan showed that last week. They got absolutely pummeled by Brunswick in week 1 of the season. Go down there last week, fall behind, but made a game, but only down a touchdown going in the fourth quarter. Ended up losing by 15 points, but we're able to move the ball on this Brunswick defense.
Yeah, and it kind of circles back to your point when we were at the way beginning of the this talk, was that you can learn a lot from those losses, and you can kind of get a sense for, okay, we're at our best when we do this. We really got burned when we did this, so let's do less of that, more of this, and
then to on Coach Cooper's side, how you beat them the last time. Well, what are you going to do different this time? Because they're going to prep for what you beat them with last time. Yeah. So as that coach that won by a lot, are you going to go in with the same game plan, or are you going to mix it up?
And Coach Cooper has never been afraid of trying a trick play or a gadget play. I know the fake punt and the halfback pass worked a few times against some Lawrence teams in the past. So I'm sure great. Coach Hersum and his crew. I didn't mean to dredge that up.
Halfback pass, it's great play. Screaming that for 4 quarters every year afterwards.
But you don't want to use a lot of time in practice on it, because they know that but at the same time you got to have your kids ready for something like that.
With teams like that, certain teams, because I would do the same thing against MCI, because they're going to pull out some gadgets.
Sure.
So you may devote like 5 minutes to your defensive team period. Just, hey, we might see that, what are we going to do if we see this? What are you going to do if they give us this formation? How are you going to react? It's certain stuff like that, and just defending that offense, defending that halfback pass for years. You may not see it on film, but you're going to rep it.
Yeah.
The way we like doing it, we set up we call it a down drill. You're going to either get down, power, or some type of pass action. Right. And the DB's job simply is read your key. If the guy goes vertical, it's not a run. So I would imagine they talked about that at least once this week.
Sure. This might be the quickest game of any playoff game this weekend because you're going to have two wing T-based teams that like to pound the ball. We could have like a 1985 kind of game here where we're just over by 8:30, which would make my deadline smile.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some of the other games around the state, not necessarily Central Maine teams, but Class D North, Dexter versus Bucksport. Bucksport seems to have been rolling through that league, Drew.
Yeah, and they have something that not a lot of teams in that class have, which is a lot of size up front, and it's just a really tough thing to have an answer for if you just can't physically match up to it. So nobody has been able to match up to them except for Oak Hill from the south, but We're dealing with just North teams right now, so it doesn't seem like there's a reason why Bucksport shouldn't roll in that game.
Yeah. Coach, Class C South, York versus Leavitt. Sure, you've seen some tape of Leavitt over the years.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the same team we played last year. I think they graduated like 2 kids from that group. So, and they're all a year older. They all know how close they were last year. So I would, as long as the weather doesn't affect them, I would assume they're just going to roll. They're going to roll York. I don't see them guys tightening up. They've been so close. I would imagine they're just going to execute their offense, go 100 miles an hour like they do, and they looked better on defense this year than they did last year. Yeah. All those guys that were juniors, I saw them early. I think it was a preseason film I had of them, and they look like grown men. Yeah. Coming across the line, the way they tackle, the way they hit. They're a very, very good team. They're going to be tough for York to handle, I think.
Sure. I'll give York a shot though because I had Wells crushing him during the regular season. Wrong. And then this week I thought it was okay. York just Wells had a bad day. York had so I thought Wells was going to kind of even score. Wrong. So I'm done with the York has no shot here.
It does, but it does go back to when we did this realignment. It is a different league when you go from D to C.
Sure.
Every year you have your outlier. You can say like Bucksport could easily compete in our league this year with their size because they have the size and everything, but you lose a little bit of that depth because usually a C team is going to have a little more depth than a D team. Yeah. So you're not going to see it on offense and defense, but you see it on special teams. Yeah. Now your tailback is on special teams. Well, I bet York's tailback. He probably wasn't on every special team, but maybe Wells's was. You never know. So it is different. It's a different world once you have to move up.
Sure. Class B South, Drew, Kennebunk and Marshwood. Is Marshwood going to get a game from Kennebunk, or are they just head and shoulders above everybody in Class B right now?
They're head and shoulders above everybody in Class B. Maybe Kennebunk can make it close. It was a blowout last time they played. Maybe they can, get in the neighborhood of 2-score game or something like that, but I can't see any reason why Marshwood's going to be seriously worried about their chances of winning that game. Yeah.
Class A statewide semifinals, we got Oxford Hills versus Thornton Academy. We imagine Oxford Hills' nice run might end this week.
What I just said, apply it to that game.
Yeah. The game that could be close, though, Scarborough versus Bonnie Eagle, Coach. The Lawrence connection at Bonnie Eagle with Kevin Cooper.
I haven't got to see him for a few years because we moved out of A so long ago, but they're a perennial team, but so is Scarborough.
Sure.
And I have actually seen quite a bit of the Flaker kid because he scores all the time. Yeah. You're not a Division I track kid for just because you show up.
Every time Scarborough highlights are on the news, Jarrett Flaker's running past everybody.
If you're not, and you can't prep for that. Right. You don't, because I'm pretty sure they don't have a 4-4 kid or 4-3, whatever he runs it at. Yeah. You can't mimic that. So if they get him early, if Scarborough gets to him early because of the speed, that's to their advantage. So I would assume they're going to feed him the ball really, really, try to get him as many early touches as possible before Bonnie Eagle can adjust to that speed of Flaker.
And finally, 8-man state championship game this weekend, Drew. We have Mount Ararat from the large school division, Old Orchard Beach from the small school division. You saw a lot of 8-man this year with Maranacook. How does this look?
It sounds like it's going to be Mount Ararat's favor. Not to disrespect the small school division, but it felt all along like the winner of that large school game between Maranacook and Mount Ararat, or it was always aligning for those two teams to meet, and then it was kind of feeling like whoever wins that is going to, that's the de facto championship there. And Mount Ararat just got their top running back and Holden Brandon, who looked great against Maranacook, running around the edge. They have Riley Moore up the middle. They have that versatile running attack that we talk about being so big at this time of year. So Old Orchard Beach is really going to have their hands full with those two.
Yeah. Now, I think everybody would agree 8-man's been a very big success this year.
Yeah.
Would the largest school by far in the division in Mount Ararat winning it put a damper on any of this enthusiasm?
It'd be hard not to keep pointing that out. It would be hard. You would feel like that's the elephant in the room if nobody brought it up. But at the same time, this is all tied to the health of the program. And you could be a big school. Sure. We saw it with Camden Hills. They had almost 700 kids, but they just had no football program. So, if Mount Ararat has a program that really could be and maybe should be competing in B, C, whatever, then yeah, we'll put a damper on it. But if they've been in the same boat as all these other teams, and
they have,
we're just trying to get our program up and going. I think it doesn't put too much of a pall on it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a straw man argument you're going to see from people, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
It's worth mentioning because people are going to say that. They're going to say, well, wait a minute, the school with 700-something kids or whatever their enrollment is, I think they had twice the enrollment of Maranacook, who they just played. So people who are of the Maranacook communities or the Old Orchard Beach for this game and the Telestars and the Trapes and all those teams that were, they might say, well, why are these guys in here? And it's probably going to be an argument that you're seeing pop up several times. But it looks like everybody was in this for the same reasons. They want to be able to play football given the resources that they have, and it's been a really good success so far. And I don't see any reason why that should get in the way of it.
Coach, I know you've had your hands full with your own team, but have you had a chance to follow any of the 8-man this season?
I wish I had, because it is an interesting development within our state, and it needs teams have to be willing to do it. Never knowing with our numbers, we might be one of those schools at some point if our numbers don't jump up. Because we played with extremely low numbers this year. But the difficulty there is a lot of these schools, you literally can go 1 year, you can have plenty of kids to have a JV and a varsity program, and then the following year, we had one junior.
Yeah.
And we lost all our seniors and due to injury. So it's a hard number, and until
it can turn fast.
It can, and until the state mandates, if you can't field 40 kids, have a set of 38, whatever that set number is, then you have to play 8-man, or you have to co-op like Falmouth Greeley, or a lot of Spruce is a true co-op, but unless you're going to merge with another school to field a team, you have to there has to be a number where the schools are going to be, and allow a school to drop once they know the number. We don't know how many kids we have for our team until we have signups.
Sure.
Some
and even then you don't know until the first day of practice who shows up.
Exactly, and that's the problem. And we started out with, I think, 35 or 38, and then we literally dropped to 33 within 2 weeks. Yeah. So it can turn on you really fast. With kids not wanting to play, they were experimenting with a sport, injury. It's hard to know what's the right thing to do, because you want to try to keep your program where it's been, but when the numbers aren't there to do it, you would like to be able to have that second chance, which is the 8-man proposition. So it puts coaches in a bind, puts administrators in a bind. So I'm glad it's there, though.
Definitely.
It's going to help out a lot of schools.
Okay. All right, that's going to do it this week for us on Gridiron Gurus. We hope you get out there and then stay warm, whatever regional final you get to, or the Class A semifinals of the 8-man championship game. For Drew, for Coach Rogers, I'm Travis. We'll be back next week to talk about state championship games on Gridiron Gurus. Thanks for watching.